Harper, you're late, her mother, Evelyn, called out as she stepped onto the wraparound porch of their suburban home, a faded suitcase trailing behind her like a loyal, but tired companion. Harper's eyes darted to the clock on the dashboard of her aging sedan. It was just past dawn, early enough for a day full of promise, yet 2 minutes behind schedule. With a strained smile masking her anxiety, Harper hopped out of the car to help with the luggage. That's when she saw Sierra, her younger sister, emerging from the front door with her own carry-on in tow. Harper's smile faltered, replaced by a knot of confusion and hurt. "What's going on?" she asked softly, striving to keep her voice steady despite the tightness in her chest. Evelyn turned toward Harper, her expression impossibly chipper, for what felt like the beginning of a storm. "Oh, Harper, we decided Sierra should join us instead. She's been under so much stress lately and really needs this getaway." Harper's heart clenched. For years, she had meticulously planned this family trip, a lavish weekend escape complete with boutique hotels, curated dining experiences, and guided tours of some of America's most vibrant cities. Every reservation, every itinerary, every small detail had been arranged by Harper with painstaking care. And now, just as the first light of day crept over the horizon, she was being sidelined. "Mom, I've been planning this for years. I even paid for everything," Harper protested, her tone barely concealing the simmering anger beneath. Evelyn waved a dismissive hand, as if Harper's objection were merely a trivial detail. "We're grateful, sweetheart. But you're always so busy, always working yourself to the bone. Sierra really needs this break right now." Sierra, leaning casually against the car with a smirk that barely concealed her delight, added, "Thanks for understanding, Harper. I know you'd do anything for us, but this time it's all about me." Harper's chest tightened further, her heart pounding in her ears. Just then, her father, Malcolm, shuffled out of the house, avoiding eye contact as he handed her a second suitcase. "Thank you for driving us, Harper," he said in a tone that was more awkward apology than comfort. "This was supposed to be our trip, a chance for the family to share something special," Harper murmured, her voice quivering with a mix of disbelief and betrayal. Evelyn's smile remained unwavering as she tried to brush off the mounting tension. "It still is, just with Sierra joining us instead. Don't make a fuss, Harper. Your sister needs this more than ever." In that moment, Harper's carefully guarded frustration erupted. For the past 2 years, she had poured every spare dollar, an ounce of energy into saving for and planning a vacation that she believed would finally earn her the recognition she so desperately craved. Yet in the eyes of her parents, Sierra's needs always trumped her own efforts. The realization was a bitter pill, one that had been lodged in her throat for years, and now, as it burst free, she felt a strange sense of clarity. Without another word, Harper forced a tight smile, opened the trunk, and muttered, "If you want to prioritize Sierra over me, fine, but don't expect me to just stand by and watch." The drive to the airport was a suffocating silence punctuated only by Sierra's incessant chatter. "Oh my gosh, Mom, did you catch that viral TikTok about New York South's secret rooftop gardens? I can't wait to go shopping in Soho. Do you think we'll have time for that, or will the guided tours eat up the entire day?" Her voice trailed off into a non-stop stream of excited commentary, oblivious to Harper's internal storm. Harper's knuckles turned white on the steering wheel as she stared ahead, biting the inside of her cheek to stave off a retort. Evelyn, still exuding an air of unfailing optimism, chuckled softly. "Of course we'll have time. We'll figure it all out once we're there." Yet every mile they traveled seemed to widen the chasm between Harper and the rest of her family. By the time they reached the designated drop-off zone at the airport, Harper's patience was hanging by a thread. As she helped unload the luggage, Evelyn pulled her in for a warm, almost patronizing hug. "Thank you for understanding, sweetheart. This means so much to us, and to Sierra." Harper's reply was a stiff nod. "Sure, Mom," she said quietly. Sierra, grinning as she wheeled her suitcase toward the entrance, chimed in, "Thanks, Harper. You're seriously the best." Standing there, watching her family disappear into the bustling terminal, Harper felt a profound mixture of anger and sorrow. Her heart pounded with the realization that every painstaking effort she had invested in making this dream trip a reality had been overshadowed by their constant favoritism. The ride back home was a blur, a montage of painful memories and the echo of every dismissive word. Once home, Harper parked in the driveway and sat in her car for several long minutes. The silence inside was as heavy as the guilt and hurt that had accumulated over years of being overlooked. With trembling fingers, she opened her battered laptop and logged into the various travel accounts she'd used to orchestrate the vacation. One by one, she began canceling hotel reservations, refunding guided tours, and voiding airline upgrades. As confirmation emails piled up in her inbox, a sense of grim satisfaction slowly replaced the raw sting of betrayal. They had chosen Sierra over her, and if that was their decision, Harper would not let her own vision of the trip, her carefully crafted masterpiece, be enjoyed on her dime. With a deep, measured breath, she shut her laptop, feeling for the first time in years that she was reclaiming a piece of herself. That evening, as Harper methodically unpacked the remnants of what was once a meticulously planned getaway, her phone began buzzing relentlessly. A series of missed calls and urgent messages lit up the screen. Evelyn's name flashed repeatedly, each alert accompanied by a tone of frantic worry. Harper hesitated before unlocking the phone and scrolling through the messages. "Harper, what is going on? The Hotel 1T let us check in. The reservation is missing. Call me immediately." Read one message in bold, desperate text. A laugh, bitter and incredulous, escaped Harper before she could stop it. "Fix it now," another message demanded. Sierra's voicemail followed soon after. "Harper, this is so petty. We're stuck here because of you. You need to call the hotel and fix it now," her voice dripping with entitlement. For years, Harper had been the designated fixer, the one who mended every mishap, smoothed over every mistake, and compensated for everyone else's shortcomings. But not tonight. Tonight, she let the barrage of calls roll off her like a deluge she no longer cared to navigate. Finally, she answered a call from Evelyn. The moment the line clicked open, her mother's voice crashed over her like a tidal wave. "Harper, what did you do? The hotel says the reservation was cancelled and none of the tours are booked." Harper's tone was uncharacteristically calm, laced with a sharp, simmering sarcasm. "I cancelled them. Perhaps it's a fitting consequence for being replaced on a trip I planned and paid for." There was a long, stunned silence on the other end before Evelyn hissed, "Why would you do that?" "Oh, I don't know," Harper replied, her voice rising. "Maybe because you decided to send Sierra instead of me. You're lucky I even drove you to the airport. I assumed you'd understand." Evelyn's voice cracked as she tried to argue, but Harper was already cutting her off. "I don't understand, and frankly, I don't care. You prioritized Sierra, and now you must deal with the fallout." With that, Harper ended the call and tossed her phone onto the couch, relishing the brief, blissful silence that followed. She allowed herself to breathe again. If her family wanted to enjoy a vacation at Sierra's expense, they would have to muddle through without the luxury and finesse that Harper had painstakingly arranged. The next morning brought no solace, only a fresh onslaught of calls and messages. At first, Harper ignored them, spending the day tidying the house and catching up on overdue work. But curiosity eventually got the better of her, and by dusk, she reluctantly unlocked her phone. The screen was awash with messages from Evelyn, Sierra, and even Malcolm. The texts grew increasingly agitated. "Harper, you've gone too far. Sierra is in tears, and your father is furious. We can't even check into any of the hotels you booked. Harper, you're acting like a child. We don't understand why you're making such a big deal. Just fix it already. Harper, we need to talk. This isn't right." Harper set the phone aside, shaking her head. For as long as she could remember, she had been the one to keep the family's affairs in order, the one who took on every burden without complaint. But now, after years of bending over backward to meet expectations that never truly valued her, something had snapped. She poured herself a cup of chamomile tea and sat at the small kitchen table, letting the warmth of the drink seep into her bones. The anger, long suppressed, began to simmer openly. How dare they expect me to fix their mess again? She thought bitterly. How dare they act as if I were the one at fault for choosing myself for once? Before long, another call came from Evelyn. This time, Evelyn's tone was less pleading and more accusatory. "Harper, this isn't funny anymore. We're stranded. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is?" Harper sipped her tea slowly, her gaze distant as she considered the irony. Embarrassing? You think it's embarrassing to save for years, planning every detail for a trip that was supposed to be ours, only to be told at the last minute that you're not even invited. Her words were measured, her voice calm, but carrying an edge that couldn't be ignored. Evelyn snapped back, "Sierra needs this more than you do, Harper. You always think she needs more attention, more support, more of everything, and I'm the one who is expected to sacrifice for her," Harper retorted, her tone rising as years of pent-up frustration found voice. "Well, not anymore. I'm done being the afterthought. I come first now." The silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, Evelyn muttered, "I don't know what you want me to say." "I don't need you to say anything," Harper replied steadily. "I just need you to understand that I'm done. I'm done being the family fixer. I'm done with living my life to meet your expectations. If you want to enjoy a vacation, then you figure out the rest without me." With that, she ended the call, leaving her phone silent for the remainder of the evening. For the next few days, Harper embraced a liberating quiet. She left her phone off, allowing herself the space to think and to heal without the relentless barrage of guilt, demands, and resentment. Mornings found her on her back porch, cradling a steaming mug of coffee, as she watched the sun rise over a city that suddenly felt full of possibilities. Afternoons were dedicated to long overdue projects and work tasks that reminded her of her own capabilities, a stark contrast to the endless demands of a family that had always taken her for granted. Yet, curiosity eventually led her back to her buzzing phone. One evening, Harper reluctantly turned it on to find a series of voicemails, a mix of hysterical pleas from Evelyn, curt admonitions from Sierra, and a surprisingly measured message from Malcolm. Evelyn's voice, quivering with a mix of anger and sorrow, pleaded, "Harper, please call me back. We've made a huge mistake." Sierra's message was laced with entitlement, "This is so petty, Harper. You're ruining everything. Just fix it already." Finally, Malcolm's message was softer, tinged with regret, "Harper, we need to talk. I don't understand what happened to you. Please, call me. Harper listened to the voicemails in silence, her heart a tangle of emotions. When her mother's final message ended with, "We're back at the airport now, the trip is ruined. I hope you're happy with yourself," Harper's anger solidified into a quiet resolve. With a deep, steadying breath, she deleted the messages without replying. She wasn't ready to reconcile, nor did she know if she ever would be. That night, as Harper sat alone with her thoughts, memories flooded in, the countless times she had been overlooked, the holidays where Sierra's whims always dictated the plans, the family gatherings where her accomplishments were dismissed as mere afterthoughts. This vacation had been the tipping point, the culmination of years of being treated like a doormat. And as the hours passed, a sense of liberation began to take root. She wasn't bound to their expectations anymore. Tonight, Harper realized, was the night she began living for herself. The next day, while tidying the remnants of a once grand plan, Harper's solitude was broken by an unexpected visit. Tessa, her longtime friend with an irreverent wit and a warm smile, arrived unannounced, carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee. Tessa's presence was like a burst of sunlight in the gloom of Harper's quiet home. "So, what happened, Harper?" Tessa asked, setting a cup down on the table. "I heard something about a cancelled reservation and a family meltdown. Care to share?" Harper chuckled dryly, stirring her coffee, as she recounted the events of the past few days. "You know how it goes, years of planning and sacrificing, only to be replaced at the last minute by someone who barely even thinks about consequences. I finally hit my breaking point." Tessa's eyes softened with sympathy. "Harper, I'm really proud of you for standing up for yourself. It takes guts to say enough is enough. Sometimes, the hardest battles are the ones we fight with our own families." Harper smiled ruefully. "Yeah, I guess I've been the family fixer for far too long. But now, with all this mess, I feel like I'm finally breathing again. It's a weird mix of anger, relief, and, dare I say it, hope." Tessa nodded, a playful glimmer in her eyes. "You know, sometimes life hands you a situation so absurd it's almost comical. I mean, who else could plan a luxurious trip for years only to have it hijacked by a sibling with a TikTok obsession? Only in our crazy, unpredictable American family drama." Their laughter mingled with the quiet hum of the late afternoon, a brief respite from the storm of emotions that had consumed Harper in recent days. And yet, beneath the humor lay a deep, unspoken truth. Harper was on the cusp of a profound transformation. The realization that she no longer had to be defined by the expectations of others filled her with a cautious optimism, a promise of a future where she could finally live on her own terms. That very evening, as the golden hour bathed her modest living room in a warm glow, Harper sat at her cluttered desk and opened a spreadsheet, a relic of the vacation plans that once consumed her every waking thought. The cancelled reservations, the refund confirmations, and the meticulously planned itineraries stared back at her like ghosts of a past life. But instead of sorrow, she felt a surge of determination. Money had been allocated for a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and Harper wasn't going to let it vanish into the ether of family obligations. With newfound resolve, she opened a new browser tab and typed in solo travel ideas in the USA. It wasn't about proving a point anymore. This was about reclaiming her independence and rediscovering herself, free from the chains of familial expectations. A few weeks later, Harper booked a solo trip that would take her on an unforgettable journey across the American landscape. Rather than the extravagant multi-city tour she had originally envisioned for her family, Harper opted for an introspective road trip along the rugged coastline of California, a journey through sun-kissed beaches, towering redwoods, and quirky small towns that seemed to exist in their own time. It was a trip designed entirely for her, an escape into a world where every moment belonged to Harper alone. The day she left for the trip was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. As her car merged onto the highway, Harper felt a cocktail of emotions. The familiar weight of responsibility that had always anchored her to her family's needs began to lift with every mile. The vast, open road beckoned her forward, promising not just scenic vistas and unexpected adventures, but also the chance to confront the parts of herself that had long been silenced by duty and expectation. Her journey took her through charming coastal towns, where she indulged in local seafood at family-run diners, stopping to chat with weathered locals who shared stories of bygone eras and quirky American traditions. In one small town, she stumbled upon a vintage record store where the owner played old blues tracks on a dusty jukebox, a nostalgic reminder of a time when music told stories of heartache, hope, and resilience. Harper couldn't help but smile at the serendipity of it all, a world where even the simplest moments held the promise of renewal. One afternoon, while parked at a scenic overlook with the Pacific Ocean stretching infinitely before her, Harper pulled out her journal. The pages, once filled with meticulous plans for a family vacation, now became a canvas for her raw thoughts and dreams. She scribbled down goals she had long buried, learning to play the guitar, writing a novel, and even starting a small business that celebrated American artisanal craftsmanship. Each goal was a bold declaration of independence, a promise to herself that she would no longer be confined by the expectations of others. As the days passed, Harper found herself not only exploring the breathtaking landscapes of California, but also the intricate terrain of her own heart. She revisited old memories, both painful and joyful, and began to understand that the years spent trying to please everyone else had robbed her of her own identity. In the quiet solitude of her solo journey, Harper discovered a deep, abiding strength that came from embracing her true self. One memorable evening, as she sat on a weathered bench beneath a canopy of stars in a small desert town, Harper's thoughts drifted to her family. She recalled the painful conversation with Evelyn, the cold silence of Malcolm's voice on the phone, and Sierra's dismissive tone. The sting of betrayal was still there, but it was now tempered by the wisdom of self-discovery. Harper realized that while her family's actions had hurt her deeply, they no longer defined her. She had the power to choose her own path, to celebrate her victories and learn from her losses without constantly seeking external validation. Humor, too, found its way back into her reflections. Harper mused that if life were a movie, her family's antics would rival even the most absurd sitcoms. Only in America, she thought with a wry smile, could a meticulously planned trip turn into a comedy of errors complete with last-minute cancellations, entitled siblings, and parental guilt trips that rival any dramatic plot twist on primetime television. The crescendo of Harper's transformation came on her final night in California. After a day spent exploring a quirky roadside attraction, a museum dedicated to the history of American diners and their jukeboxes, she found herself at a cozy bed and breakfast in a small coastal town. Over a late dinner of locally sourced cuisine and a hearty laugh shared with the inn owner, a charismatic storyteller with a penchant for old Hollywood anecdotes, Harper realized that the journey was far from over. The trip was not merely an escape, it was the beginning of a new chapter in her life. Returning home, Harper was greeted by a family that had, in the interim, come to terms with the fallout of their decisions. Evelyn and Malcolm reached out with tentative messages, expressing regret and a desire to understand what had driven Harper to such drastic measures. Sierra, for her part, offered only half-hearted apologies, still clinging to a sense of entitlement that had defined her for so long. Harper listened to each word with a measured calm, her heart no longer a fragile vessel of unending sacrifice, but a stronghold of her own desires and aspirations. One crisp autumn afternoon, as Harper sat on the front porch of her modest apartment, a far cry from the well-appointed venues of her past vacation plans, she reflected on all that had transpired. The painful memories were still there, interwoven with moments of liberation and self-discovery. The confrontation with her family had been harsh, even brutal, but it had also been cathartic. Harper was no longer the quiet fixer of familial woes. She had become an individual with her own dreams, her own ambitions, and the unyielding will to pursue them. In the weeks that followed, Harper began to reshape her life. She redecorated her living space, replacing the inherited, outdated furnishings with pieces that reflected her vibrant personality and newfound independence. Weekends were no longer consumed by obligatory family visits or the relentless pace of work. Instead, Harper spent her time exploring local art galleries, sampling gourmet food from pop-up food trucks, and even taking a few impromptu road trips along scenic byways that crisscrossed the American heartland. A particularly transformative moment came during a photography class Harper signed up for, a long-held dream that had been relegated to the background by years of self-sacrifice. There, amid a group of passionate amateurs, Harper rediscovered her creative spark. The class was filled with laughter, friendly banter, and discussions that ranged from the technicalities of shutter speed to the poetic beauty of a perfectly captured sunset. It was in that creative space that Harper realized how much she had lost by constantly bending to others' needs. Every snapshot she took was not just a picture, but a reclaiming of her own narrative. Throughout this period of self-reinvention, Tessa remained a steadfast friend and confidant, offering support and a dose of humor whenever the old wounds threatened to resurface. One breezy afternoon, as the two sat on a park bench in a bustling downtown square, complete with the chatter of street performers and the aroma of gourmet food trucks, Tessa teased, "I always knew you had a backbone, Harper. It just took a family fiasco to show it off." Harper laughed, a genuine sound that mingled with the ambient music of the city. "You know, Tessa, I was so busy being everyone's problem solver that I forgot who I was supposed to be. Now, I'm finally starting to figure that out. I'm not just a fixer, I'm a creator, an explorer, and maybe even a bit of a rebel against the status quo." Their conversation drifted into plans for future adventures. A cross-country road trip along Route 66, visits to quirky roadside attractions, and even the possibility of starting a small travel blog dedicated to rediscovering America's hidden gems. In those moments, Harper felt a renewed sense of purpose, a reminder that life was meant to be lived fully and on one's own terms. Eventually, the echoes of her family's disapproval and the sting of old wounds began to fade into the background, replaced by the vibrant tapestry of her own experiences. Harper realized that while her family might never fully understand her need to prioritize herself, that was a burden she no longer needed to bear. The painful past had given way to a future full of potential, a future where every day was an opportunity to grow, to laugh, and to celebrate the intricate, messy beauty of life. In a final, reflective moment, Harper sat on her own front porch one cool evening, the sky above a brilliant canvas of twilight hues. As she sipped a cup of herbal tea, she thought back to that fateful morning when everything had changed. The memory was bittersweet, a vivid reminder of the pain of being overlooked, yet also a testament to the strength it had taken to reclaim her own destiny. Harper knew there would still be challenges ahead. Family relationships, like the shifting sands of a long-forgotten coastline, might never be entirely stable. But she was no longer willing to let the past dictate her future. With each passing day, she chose to live boldly, embracing both the laughter and the tears, the successes and the setbacks. And so, With a wry smile and a heart unburdened by old expectations, Harper resolved to keep moving forward. She had learned that sometimes the most courageous act of all was to simply say, "I matter too." In that declaration, amid the quiet hum of an American evening, Harper's journey towards self-discovery continued, vivid, unrelenting, and filled with the promise of new beginnings.